My name is Wesley Carver. I'm 31 years old, and for the past 5 years I've been the operations manager at Carver Logistics, the trucking company my father Franklin built from scratch in Akron, Ohio, while my younger brother Griffin got to coast through college on Dad's dime and party his way through a business degree he barely used. I was here every morning at 6 a.m., managing routes, dealing with drivers, and making sure our 18-wheelers kept America's supply chains moving. I married Haley when I was 26. She was a radiologic technologist at Akron General Medical Center, smart, ambitious, and everything I thought I wanted in a wife. We bought a modest 2-story colonial in Fairlawn, got a golden retriever named Cooper, and settled into what I believed was a solid marriage built on trust and shared goals. But around September of 2023, things started to feel off. Haley began picking up extra shifts that never appeared on the hospital's official schedule when I called to check. She'd leave at odd hours, claiming they needed her for emergency CT scans or MRI procedures, but her explanations felt rehearsed. She started keeping her iPhone face down on the nightstand and would practically jump out of her skin when it buzzed during dinner. The weirdest part was the sudden closeness with my mother, Loretta. See, Haley and my mom never got along. Loretta always favored Griffin, my 29-year-old brother who could do no wrong in her eyes. She'd make little comments about how Haley wasn't family material or how she dressed too provocatively for church. But suddenly, they were having long, whispered phone conversations that would end abruptly when I walked into the room. Then Griffin started showing up at our house when I wasn't home. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video, and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. At first, it seemed innocent enough. He'd drop by with coffee from Starbucks claiming he was just in the neighborhood, or he'd text Haley saying he needed to fix something in our garage. Griffin had always been the type to avoid real work, preferring to charm his way through life while Dad paid his bills and Mom made excuses for his failures. But now he was suddenly Mr. Helpful, showing up with tools and offering to handle household repairs. What really got my attention was how uncomfortable they both looked when I'd come home unexpectedly. I'd walk into my own kitchen to find them standing too far apart, like they'd just jumped away from each other. Haley would busy herself with unnecessary tasks, and Griffin would find excuses to leave within minutes. I'm not a jealous man by nature. 5 years of marriage had built what I thought was unshakable trust. But I've spent enough time in the logistics business to know when something doesn't add up. When drivers start taking routes that don't make sense, when delivery times don't match the paperwork, when fuel costs spike without explanation, you investigate. So I started paying attention to patterns. Haley's mysterious shifts always seemed to coincide with Griffin's absences from the family business. When she claimed to be at the hospital on Saturday afternoons, Griffin would be unreachable. When she worked late on Wednesday evenings, his company truck would be missing from Dad's lot. The timing was too consistent to be coincidental. By early October 2023, my suspicions crystallized into something much worse. Haley started showing signs of morning sickness. She tried to hide it at first, but I'd been married to her for 3 years at that point. I knew her routines, her habits, the way she normally ate her morning cereal. Suddenly, she was running to the bathroom during breakfast, claiming it was just stress from work. She started avoiding coffee, something she'd never done in all the time I'd known her. When I suggested we pick up a pregnancy test from CVS, just to be sure, the look of panic that flashed across her face told me everything I needed to know. "We don't need to rush into anything," she said, her voice tight. "It's probably just a stomach bug going around the hospital, but I wasn't born yesterday. And more importantly, I wasn't going to confront anyone until I had concrete proof." This is where my background in logistics became invaluable. Managing a fleet of trucks teaches you to track everything: fuel consumption, GPS routes, maintenance schedules, driver hours. Every detail matters because one discrepancy can cost thousands of dollars or put lives at risk. I applied the same methodical approach to my personal situation. Griffin drove a company F-150 equipped with a GPS tracking system that logged every mile. As operations manager, I had administrative access to all vehicle reports. I started pulling his daily route logs and cross-referencing them with Haley's work schedule. The pattern was damning. On every day Haley claimed to be working an extra shift, Griffin's truck was parked within a 5-mile radius of locations that had nothing to do with our business operations. October 2, 2023. Haley worked a double shift from 2 p.m. to midnight. Griffin's truck spent 6 hours parked at the Residence Inn on West Market Street. October 9th. Another emergency shift for Haley. Griffin's GPS showed his truck at the Hampton Inn on Montrose Avenue for the entire afternoon. October 16th. Haley's weekend shift coincided with Griffin's truck being stationary at a rest stop off I-77 for 4 hours. I printed every report, organized them by date, and stored them in a locked filing cabinet at the office. But GPS logs alone wouldn't be enough. I needed more evidence. That's when I decided to audit Griffin's corporate credit card expenses. As operations manager, I reviewed all company expenditures monthly anyway, but I'd never paid close attention to Griffin's personal charges that Dad allowed him to put on the business account. Now I scrutinized every transaction. Hotel rooms, always paid for in advance, always during hours when Haley was supposedly at work. Dinner charges at upscale restaurants in Canton and Hudson, places Griffin would never go alone, and certainly not on weekday afternoons. Charges at Victoria's Secret, which seemed odd for a guy who'd been single since his last girlfriend dumped him nearly a year earlier. The most telling expense was a recurring charge at Dr. Patricia Morrison's OB/GYN practice in Cuyahoga Falls. 3 separate visits, all paid for with Griffin's card, all scheduled during Haley's supposed work hours. I felt sick to my stomach, but I kept digging. Bank records were next. Haley and I maintained joint checking and savings accounts at KeyBank, something we'd set up when we bought the house. I pulled our statements going back 6 months and found cash withdrawals that didn't match our normal spending patterns. $200 here, $300 there, always on days when she claimed to be picking up extra shifts. When I casually asked her about the withdrawals, she said she was helping her sister with some financial problems. But Haley's sister lived in Portland, Oregon, and we'd video called with her just the week before. She'd gotten a promotion at Nike and was doing better than ever. The lies were piling up, but I still needed the smoking gun. It came in the form of our shared email account. Haley and I had set up a joint Gmail account when we got married, something we used for household bills, insurance communications, and family planning. We both had the password, and we'd always been open about checking it. But apparently, Haley had forgotten about this arrangement. On a Saturday morning in late October 2023, while she was out getting groceries, I logged into the account to pay our electric bill. That's when I saw the email thread that changed everything. The subject line read, "Our situation." It was a conversation between Haley and my mother, Loretta. The timestamps showed they'd been communicating this way for weeks. The first email I opened was from Loretta, dated October 18, 2023. "Haley, I know this is complicated, but you need to think about what's best for everyone involved. Wesley is stable, responsible, and he'll make an excellent father. Griffin isn't ready for that kind of commitment, and honestly, he may never be. What Wesley doesn't know won't hurt him, and this baby deserves a secure home with someone who can provide properly." Haley's response made my blood run cold. "I understand what you're saying, Loretta, but I feel horrible about deceiving Wesley. He's a good man, and he doesn't deserve this. But Griffin says he loves me, and I believe him. Maybe if we tell Wesley the truth, he'll understand and we can work something out as a family." Loretta's reply was swift and brutal. "Absolutely not. Griffin is my son, but I know his limitations. He's irresponsible with money, can't hold down a steady relationship, and has no business raising a child. Wesley has spent 3 years proving himself as a husband and provider. This baby would be lucky to have him as a father, even if the biology is different. Some truths are better left buried, dear. Trust me on this." I sat in my home office, staring at the screen, reading email after email that detailed their conspiracy. They discussed doctor's appointments, how to time the pregnancy announcement, and even strategies for making sure I never suspected the truth. Loretta had researched the legal implications of paternity fraud in Ohio and assured Haley that as long as I signed the birth certificate, I'd be financially responsible regardless of genetics. My mother, my own mother, was actively helping my wife deceive me into raising my brother's child. I printed every email, every timestamp, every piece of evidence that proved this wasn't just an affair. This was a calculated plan to destroy my life while making me pay for the privilege. I spent the next hour printing every piece of correspondence, organizing the emails chronologically, and cross-referencing them with the GPS logs and financial records I'd already compiled. The evidence painted a complete picture of betrayal that went far beyond a simple affair. This was a family conspiracy designed to manipulate me into unknowingly raising another man's child, my own brother's child, while my mother orchestrated the entire deception. But I didn't confront anyone, not yet. In the trucking business, timing is everything. You don't deliver a load before the customer is ready to receive it, and you don't react to problems before you have a complete solution. I needed to think strategically about my next moves, because once I played my hand, there would be no going back. First, I consulted with David Martinez, a family law attorney in downtown Akron whom I'd met through the Chamber of Commerce. I didn't give him specific details, but I outlined a hypothetical situation involving adultery, potential paternity fraud, and divorce proceedings in Ohio. David explained that Ohio was a no-fault divorce state, but that adultery could still impact property division and spousal support. More importantly, he confirmed that if I had evidence of paternity fraud, I could avoid being held financially responsible for a child that wasn't biologically mine, but only if I acted before signing any birth certificates or establishing a legal presumption of paternity. The key, David told me, is documentation. Ohio courts won't take your word for it. You need irrefutable proof, and you need to act quickly once you have it. I retained his services that same day, paying the consultation fee with cash from my personal account. Next, I began quietly securing my financial assets. I opened a new checking account at Huntington Bank under my name only, and started routing my paychecks there instead of our joint account. I removed Haley as a beneficiary on my life insurance policy and 401k. I changed the password on our shared investment account at Edward Jones and moved half the funds to a new account she couldn't access. These weren't vindictive moves. They were practical precautions. If Haley was willing to commit paternity fraud with my mother's help, I couldn't trust her not to clean out our accounts once she realized her deception was exposed. While I was methodically preparing my legal and financial defenses, the conspirators were getting sloppy. Griffin started showing up at family dinners every Sunday, something he'd avoided for years. He'd always claimed he was too busy or had other plans, but suddenly he was Mr. Family Man, helping Mom set the table and asking detailed questions about Haley's pregnancy symptoms. The way he looked at her during these dinners, protective, possessive, proud, made me want to punch him in the face. But I maintained my composure and kept collecting evidence. During one of these Sunday dinners in mid-November 2023, Haley announced she was 8 weeks pregnant. The timing matched perfectly with the hotel receipts and GPS logs from September. Everyone congratulated us. Dad opened a bottle of champagne, and Mom started talking about converting the spare bedroom into a nursery. "Wesley's going to be such a wonderful father," Loretta said, smiling at me with what I now recognized as pure manipulation. "This baby is so blessed to have such a stable, responsible man to look up to." Griffin nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, bro, you're going to be great at this." The kid couldn't ask for a better role model. I smiled and thanked them for their kind words, all while mentally adding this conversation to the growing list of evidence that would soon destroy them both. By December 2023, I had everything I needed. GPS logs proving their meetings, financial records showing Griffin paid for hotel rooms and doctor visits, email evidence of the conspiracy, and witness testimony I could provide about their suspicious behavior. But I wanted one final piece of proof that would make their guilt absolutely undeniable. I hired a private investigator named Rachel Torres, a former Cleveland police detective who specialized in matrimonial investigations. I gave her copies of the GPS logs and asked her to conduct surveillance during Haley's next supposed work shift. I needed photographic evidence that would hold up in court and eliminate any possibility that they could claim innocence. Rachel's report arrived via secure email on December 15, 2023, along with time-stamped photographs that left no room for doubt. Haley and Griffin entering a room at the Courtyard Marriott in Canton. The same couple leaving 3 hours later, Griffin's hand on her lower back in a gesture that was unmistakably intimate. A photo of them sharing lunch at Bender's Tavern, Haley's hand resting on top of Griffin's across the table. The final photograph showed them in the parking lot, Griffin's hand on Haley's small but visible baby bump, both of them smiling like they were discussing their future together. I paid Rachel's invoice that same day and added her report to my growing file of evidence. Now I just needed to decide how and when to detonate this bomb. The opportunity presented itself when Mom suggested we host Christmas dinner at our house instead of hers. "It'll be good practice for Wesley and Haley," she said during a phone call in early December. "Next year they'll have a little one to think about, so they should get comfortable entertaining the whole family." Haley agreed immediately, excited about the prospect of playing hostess for what she thought would be a celebration of our growing family. Griffin offered to help with the cooking, and Dad said he'd bring his famous bourbon-glazed ham. As I listened to them plan this family gathering, I realized I'd found the perfect stage for my final act. Christmas dinner 2023 would be a day they'd remember for the rest of their lives, but not for the reasons they expected. I spent the weeks leading up to Christmas making my final preparations. I had David Martinez draft divorce papers citing irreconcilable differences and adultery. I arranged for a DNA testing kit to be delivered to the house on December 26th. I prepared a comprehensive folder containing all the evidence I'd collected: printed emails, GPS logs, financial records, photographs, and the private investigator's complete report. Most importantly, I prepared myself emotionally for what was about to happen. 3 years of marriage were about to end. My relationship with my brother and mother would be permanently destroyed. The family business dynamics would change forever. But I was ready. I'd been betrayed by the people I trusted most, and they'd made their choices. Now they were about to face the consequences. Christmas Eve 2023 arrived with fresh snow covering our neighborhood in Fair Lawn. Haley spent the morning preparing our house for what she believed would be a joyful family celebration. She was now 12 weeks pregnant, showing the early signs of her condition, glowing with the kind of happiness that comes from thinking you've successfully deceived everyone around you. Griffin arrived early to help with the cooking, as planned. I watched from the kitchen doorway as he placed his hand protectively on Haley's lower back while she stirred the gravy, the same intimate gesture Rachel Torres had photographed weeks earlier. They moved around each other with the comfortable familiarity of a couple, not the awkwardness you'd expect between a sister-in-law and brother-in-law. "The turkey smells incredible, Haley," Griffin said, his voice soft with affection. "You're going to be such an amazing mom." "Thank you," she replied, beaming up at him. "I can't wait to meet our—" She caught herself mid-sentence, glancing nervously toward where I was standing. I can't wait to meet the baby." I smiled and walked into the kitchen. "Need any help in here?" "No, we've got everything under control," Haley said quickly. "Why don't you go relax? Dad and your mom should be here soon." Dad and Loretta arrived at 4 p.m. sharp, Dad carrying his bourbon-glazed ham and a bottle of Maker's Mark, Mom bringing her famous green bean casserole and enough fake enthusiasm to power the Christmas lights on our tree. "Wesley, darling," Mom said, kissing my cheek, "everything looks wonderful. And Haley, you look absolutely radiant. Pregnancy agrees with you." We gathered around our dining room table at 5:30, the scene looking like something from a Norman Rockwell painting. The chandelier cast warm light over our best china. The turkey was perfectly golden, and everyone was smiling. To an outside observer, we looked like the ideal American family celebrating the holidays together. I waited until everyone had filled their plates and started eating. Then I stood up and raised my glass of wine. "I'd like to propose a toast," I said, my voice steady and calm. "To family, to honesty, and to the truth that always finds a way to surface." Everyone raised their glasses, though I noticed Haley's hand trembled slightly. Actually, I continued, setting down my wine, before we drink to truth, I think we should acknowledge some truths that have been hidden at this table. The room went completely silent. Griffin stopped chewing mid-bite. Mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Dad looked confused, but Haley's face had gone pale. I walked to the sideboard where I'd placed a manila envelope earlier that afternoon, hidden behind our Christmas cards. "Haley," I said, returning to my seat and sliding the envelope across the table to her. "These are divorce papers. They cite adultery and irreconcilable differences. Your signature is required by January 15th. She stared at the envelope like it might explode. "Wesley, what are you talking about? I don't understand." "Let me help you understand," I interrupted, pulling out my phone. "Griffin, can you explain why your company truck was parked at the Residence Inn on West Market Street for 6 hours on October 2nd, the same day Haley claimed to be working a double shift at the hospital?" Griffin's face turned red. I don't remember. I might have been meeting a client at a hotel for 6 hours on a Sunday." I scrolled through my phone. "How about October 9th at the Hampton Inn? October 16th at the rest stop off I-77. I have GPS logs for every single location, Griffin. Every date, every timestamp." Dad set down his fork and looked between his two sons. "Wesley, what the hell is going on here?" I turned to Loretta, who was sitting frozen in her chair. "Mom, would you like to explain the email you sent to Haley on October 18th? The one where you told her that what I didn't know wouldn't hurt me and that Griffin wasn't father material?" Mom's face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" I pulled out a printed copy of the email and read aloud. "What Wesley doesn't know won't hurt him. And this baby deserves a secure home with someone who can provide properly." I looked up at her. "Those are your exact words, Mom. From your email address to our shared Gmail account." The silence in the room was deafening. Dad slowly turned to look at his wife, then at Griffin, then at Haley. The pieces were falling into place. "Jesus Christ," Dad whispered. "Please tell me this isn't what I think it is." Griffin finally found his voice. "Dad, I can explain." "Explain what?" Dad's voice was rising. "That you've been sleeping with your brother's wife. That you got her pregnant. That your mother helped you cover it up." "Franklin, please," Mom started, but Dad cut her off. 43 years of marriage, Loretta. 43 years. And you helped orchestrate this betrayal against our own son?" I pulled out the folder containing all my evidence and set it on the table. There's more. Financial records showing Griffin paid for hotel rooms with the company credit card. Receipts from Dr. Morrison's OB/GYN office. A private investigator's report with photographs. I looked directly at Haley. "Time-stamped photos of you and Griffin at the Courtyard Marriott in December. His hand on your pregnant belly, both of you looking very much like expectant parents." Haley started crying. "Wesley, I never meant for it to happen this way. I love you, but Griffin and we fell in love. We didn't plan this." "You didn't plan to get caught," I corrected. "But you absolutely planned to deceive me into raising his child. The emails prove that." Griffin stood up abruptly. "Look, Wesley, I'm sorry, okay? But you can't control who you fall in love with, and maybe this worked out for the best." "Sit down," Dad said, his voice like ice. Griffin immediately sat. Dad looked at me with something that might have been pride mixed with sorrow. "Son, what do you need from me?" "Griffin no longer works for Carver Logistics as of tomorrow morning," I said. "His access to company vehicles, credit cards, and facilities is revoked. The truck needs to be returned by 8 a.m. "Done," Dad said without hesitation. I turned to Haley. "You have 30 days to move out of this house. The mortgage is in my name only, as are all the utilities. You can take your personal belongings and anything you brought to the marriage, but everything else stays." "Wesley, please," she sobbed. "Can't we work this out? What about counseling? What about the baby?" "The baby isn't mine," I said simply. "And we'll have DNA testing to confirm that legally. I've already arranged for the kit to be delivered tomorrow." Mom finally spoke up, her voice shaking. "Wesley, you're destroying this family over a mistake." I'm not destroying anything, Mom. You destroyed it when you helped them deceive me. You made your choice, and now you get to live with the consequences. Dad stood up slowly. Loretta, we're leaving, now. He looked at Griffin with disgust. You too, I don't want to see either of you until you figure out how to apologize for this disgrace. Franklin, wait, Mom pleaded. 43 years, Dad repeated, shaking his head. 43 years, and this is what I get. They left without another word. Griffin followed them out, shooting me a look that was equal parts guilt and resentment. The DNA test results came back in early January 2024, confirming what I already knew. I was not the father. The divorce was finalized by April 2024. Haley moved in with Griffin, who found a job driving for a competitor at significantly lower pay than what he'd been making at Dad's company. Mom tried to reconcile with Dad multiple times, but he filed for separation and moved into a studio apartment downtown. As for me, Dad made me a full partner in Carver Logistics in March 2024. Business has never been better, and I've never been happier. I learned that sometimes the people closest to you are capable of the deepest betrayal, but I also learned that patience, evidence, and careful planning always win over deception and manipulation. The baby was born in July 2024, a healthy boy they named Dylan. I wish him well, but he's not my responsibility. Griffin and Haley are raising him in a cramped apartment in Canton, struggling financially now that Griffin makes half what he used to earn and has to pay child support from his previous relationship that Haley didn't know about. Funny how the truth has a way of surfacing, just like I said in that Christmas toast. If you enjoyed this story, like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.